All right, let's talk about MLflow. If you've ever worked on a machine learning project, you know it can sometimes feel like you're completely lost in a maze. Well, today we're talking about the tool that acts as your guide, the thing that brings some much-needed order to all that chaos. Let's jump right in. So let's get real for a second. Why do so many machine learning projects just die? You know the feeling, right? You've got this amazing model working perfectly in your notebook. The results look fantastic, but then what? Actually getting that thing into a real live product? That's a completely different story. And honestly, that gap between your notebook and production is a graveyard for good ideas.
And why is it so hard? Well, it really boils down to a few major headaches. These 4 big hurdles you see here. First off, the sheer number of tools out there is just overwhelming. Then you've got the nightmare of trying to keep track of every little experiment you run. And of course, there's the classic, but it worked on my machine problem, reproducibility is a killer. And finally, just pushing the button to deploy it? Yeah, that can be a mess all on its own.
So yeah, putting it simply is tough, but it's a mess. It's this tangled web of different libraries, different parameters, different versions of your code. It's just chaotic. It's no surprise at all that some of the most brilliant models get stuck in the lab and never actually make an impact in the real world.
But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if there was something, a guide maybe, that could help you navigate that maze? A tool built from the ground up to clear a path right from that first experiment all the way to a production-ready system.
Well, that guide has a name, MLflow. It's this awesome open-source platform that came out of Databricks, and its whole reason for being is to manage the entire machine learning lifecycle, end to end. It was literally designed to solve those 4 big problems we just talked about: tracking, making things reproducible, managing models, and getting them deployed.
So how does it do all that? Well, MLflow is broken down into 4 main parts. And the cool thing is, they're independent. You don't have to use the whole shebang. You can just pick the piece you need. You've got tracking, projects, models, and the model registry. Each one tackles a different part of the maze. So let's break them down one by one.
Okay, first up, MLflow tracking. Let's go back to that experiment mess. You're tweaking hyperparameters, trying different data sets. How in the world are you supposed to remember which combination gave you that one really good result from last Tuesday? That's exactly what tracking is for. Honestly, the best way to get your head around this is to think of it like GitHub, but for your ML experiments. Seriously. Just like Git tracks every single change you make to your code, MLflow tracking logs and versions every single training run you do. It's a game changer.
So what are we actually logging here? For every single run, that's what MLflow calls an experiment, it grabs everything. It logs the hyperparameters you used, your learning rate, that kind of thing. It logs all your evaluation metrics like your accuracy or your loss. And crucially, it saves what are called artifacts, which is just a fancy word for any files you create, like the actual model file, charts, or even data samples. It's all there.
All right, so now our experiments are all neatly tracked. We know what we did, but what about the next big problem? You hand your code to a colleague, and it breaks. That dreaded, it worked on my machine moment. Well, that's what MLflow Projects is designed to kill.
The whole idea behind projects is standardization. It's a standard format for packaging up your code and everything it needs to run. All the dependencies, the configurations, everything. The end goal is simple but so powerful. Anyone, anywhere, should be able to run your code and get the exact same results you did. Just one command and boom, it works. And you know what? It's not complicated at all. A project pie is basically just 3 things. You've got your code and data, obviously. Then you have a file like a conda.yaml that lists every single library your code needs to run. And finally, the magic piece, the ML project file. It's a simple little text file that acts as the conductor, telling MLflow exactly how to run your code and which environment to build.
Okay, we're making progress. We can track our experiments and we can reproduce them. Now for the final boss, deployment and management. This is about getting the model out of the lab and into the hands of users. And that's where the last 2 components, MLflow models and the model registry, come into play.
First, let's talk about MLflow models. I love this analogy. Think of it as a smart suitcase for your model. It's a standard way to pack up your model, but it also includes the instruction manual. This means you can take that suitcase and open it up in a whole bunch of different places, different cloud platforms, different serving tools, and it just works.
So what's the secret sauce that makes this suitcase so smart? It's a concept called flavors. A flavor is basically just a recipe for how to use the model. So your one model file can have multiple flavors. It might have a scikit-learn flavor, so other scikit-learn tools know what to do with it. But it can also have a generic Python function flavor, so literally any Python application can run it.
This is what makes it so darn flexible. And check this out. This is where it gets crazy simple. Once your model is packaged up with its flavors, you can turn it into a live REST API with, wait for it, one single command. That's not an exaggeration. You type one line in your terminal, and bang, you have a server running, ready to take requests and spit out predictions. It's amazing.
But, okay, deploying a model isn't a one-and-done thing, right? You're going to have version 2, version 3. Some models will be for testing, others will be live in production. How do you manage all that? That's the job of the MLflow model registry. Think of it as the central command center for all your models. It gives you a really clear, structured process for a model's life. A new version can be flagged as experimental. Once you think it's promising, you can promote it to staging for more serious testing. And when it's proven itself, you promote it to production. And when it's outdated, you just archive it. It makes it super clear for the whole team, engineers, managers, everyone to see exactly where each model stands. So, we've seen all the individual pieces of the puzzle. Now let's put them together and see what this looks like in the real world. You know, when you're working on a team.
Because in a real company, you're not just going to run this on your own laptop, right? You'll have a central remote tracking server that everyone on the team connects to. The upsides are obvious. Everything is in one place, everyone can see everyone else's work, it's perfect for collaboration. But you do have to think about the other side of the coin. You're responsible for keeping it secure, paying for the server, and maintaining it.
And it's super important to know that MLflow isn't the only game in town. There's a whole ecosystem of incredible MLOps tools out there. You've probably heard of some of them, like Neptune, Comet, or Weights and Biases. They're all great and have their own strengths. But MLflow has really cemented itself as a kind of open-source industry standard, especially because it's so well integrated into platforms like AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud.
So let's pull this all together. What do you really get out of using MLflow? You get control. You get the power to track every experiment so you can compare them fairly. You get the ability to create projects that anyone can reproduce. You can spin up a model into an API in minutes, and you can manage the entire life cycle of that model like a pro, from birth to retirement.
But here's a crucial thing to remember. As amazing and powerful as MLflow is, it's not the final destination. Think of it as base camp. It's the absolute best first step you can take on the much, much bigger journey into the world of MLOps.
And that brings us to the final question I want to leave you with. Okay, your model's now perfectly tracked, it's packaged, it's versioned, it's tidy. But is it ready for the real world? Is it ready for the unpredictable chaos of live data? What happens when you need to monitor it, or when you need to make sure it's fair, or when 1 million users hit it at once? Well, that's the next part of the maze to explore.